Hi, everyone. I'm Linda Bennett, your spiritual counselor and psychic host. Namaste, which means I bow to the God within you. And today we're going to be talking about the eclipses coming up very shortly, which are extraordinarily important, not just to Gemini and Sagittarius, but to communication on the planet as well. And if you have a question, a personal question, one question, it's not a whole consultation. If you have a question, you have to ask a metaphysical question first, like what's happening with the plane that was hijacked by the country of Belarus. What's happening with the Earth? What's happening with the volcano in Iceland that doesn't seem to be stopping, that seems to be accelerating? What about 60 Minutes last Sunday? Talking about, are you ready? I thought I was on the History Channel. UFOs. Except, God help us, they won't call them UFOs. They call them unidentified aerial phenomena. What are they going to do when they talk about the ones that go underneath the ocean? I don't know. So if you have a personal question, you can call us at the number listed below and ask a metaphysical question first, and then you can answer or ask your personal question. So metaphysical first, personal question second. And that doesn't mean you say, well, how do I fit into? No, don't sneak it. Be honest, be good, be a good participant. Metaphysically speaking, I like to say that Aristotle discovered the word metaphysics and said it's about the unseen world. And when in meditation many years ago, I had been offered a program on one of the channels in Florida, I got the term metaphysically speaking. I said, that's great. It brings the unseen world into the seen world. So it brings them together, which is metaphysics. Metaphysics is about everything. And not just should you buy a new car. It's about everything that's important in life, body, mind, and spirit of humans, of animals, of trees and forests and jungles and deserts, of the actual earth itself to the very core, to our atmosphere. It is everything we deal with. It is about religion. It's about spirituality, which are two different things. Yeah, no, religion has nothing to do with spirituality. Spirituality has nothing to do with religion, except possibly Hinduism and Buddhism. But Buddhism likes to say, meditate. That'll answer your questions. Meditate. And you should be giving at least 15 minutes a day. Build it up to 20 minutes. Build it up to half an hour. Some days you'll have 5 minutes because the alarm didn't go off. I started falling back to sleep today after the alarm went off, and I was cuddling with my little Gracie pussycat, and she was all snuggled next to my face. And then I heard, get up. I said, why? It's Tuesday. Oh, I have the show. And so I gave her more kisses, and I said, Mommy's got to get up. She didn't want to get up. I said, okay, you stay here. I got up, I covered her up with the blankie, and she was all set. What we do for our pussycats and puppy dogs, I'm just telling you. So therefore, and she's a consciousness as well. All of your pets are consciousness. All of your pets carry a God spirit. Who's God? I don't know. But you know what I want to know? Who's behind God? And who's behind that? And how did that come to be? And what made that come to be? Well, I gave up on that a long time ago. I said, you know what? I've had enough spiritual experiences. I've had enough near-death experiences. I've had UFO experiences. What's the point in worrying about it? Someday I'll know. I don't need to know it now. I just need to do the very best I can on the planet I am on. So we're talking about two things today, particularly. One, the eclipses. Two, do you think this is your home planet? Meaning, is this the first planet you ever took physical form on? In my classes, I've asked this question over the years, and so many people said, no, I've never felt like I belonged here, which is how I feel. I even said that in class one day in one of my science classes. And people looked at me like I just fell out of the sky and I was stark raving naked. And the teacher glazed over. I could see her eyes going like this. Oh, God, another nut. And therefore, I didn't talk about it a lot until I got involved in publicly discussing metaphysics. And here we are today, and I'm still talking about it. And what the difference is, more and more people are not glazing over. More and more people have had enough experiences in their lives where they feel that, no, this doesn't feel right where I come from. Oh, where I come from? What am I talking about? Where I come from? That's crazy. I haven't come from Earth. Not necessarily. This planet's only about 4.3 billion years old. There are other planets that are over 20 billion years old. We know this from the fabulous experimentation that not only the United States, but Sweden and Switzerland and other parts of Europe have done. The Chinese don't share much of their information with us, but they share what's really important to the world. So, yes, they have a government that's a nightmare from hell, but they know the difference when something's important. They don't always tell the truth. I still feel the coronavirus was sneaked out, was let out, just as an experiment, not even knowing how virulent it was. I probably will never be able to prove that. I think scientists already have that as a pretty good idea and kind of substantiated it already. But because they don't have permission, quotes, wisely to discuss it in public, it's not going to be discussed yet. By the way, the idea of beating up Asian people, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you people? Those of you who are guilty, obviously not those of you who are innocent. You just don't hit someone because you don't like them. And how can you not like someone you don't know? You don't know the people of China. When you think about China, and I am not for communism, I am not for corruption, I am not for control of people, I am for education of people. But a country that can create some of the most magnificent artwork. In fact, the shirt I'm wearing today, I got purposely because, which I'll tell you something funny. I have it in pink, which I was going to wear today, but when I put it under bright lights, it just drained out. It's an Oriental print. And when my daughter looked at the blouses, she said, "This is like your couch." My couch is more Oriental in the flower design, but I have a couch and a love seat that I've had for like 100 years, and it's the same idea. And so they make magnificent prints. They discovered silk in this era of time. They have beautiful music. They have magnificent architecture. My favorite is the swallowtail roof. You know, you see that on pagodas, you see it on temples. Graciousness, beauty in gardens, in homes, using as much of the natural wood as possible, as much of the tile that can be created as possible. No plastics. There are many structures throughout the Orient that were built thousands of years ago and are still standing today. How is that possible with all the tsunamis and the hurricanes and the typhoons, rather, because there they call them typhoons in the Pacific. So between music and art and their science and their literature and their martial arts, which were created by the peasants for self-protection, you say, how can a country that has created such beauty be so horrifically dogmatic in their politics? Do you have any ideas about that? That would be an interesting topic to finish talking about. But I want to get right now, before I forget it, because we ran out of time last time. By the way, every second Tuesday and every fourth Tuesday of every month, we will be on the air at 6 p.m. So therefore, you can catch us live. And I understand, but I'm not sure. I think we're going to be re-airing once or twice. Is that correct, Ms. Director? I can't read flips from here.
Get back on topic and we'll do the schedule later.
We'll do the schedule later. Okay. So eclipses are when the sun and the moon cross over each other, and the moon, sometimes you get a partial eclipse, sometimes you'll get a halo eclipse, and sometimes you'll get an exact eclipse where the moon almost covers the sun, and you get a beautiful, very small halo around the moon. And that happens 2 or 3 times a year. And the energy of it is extraordinarily powerful. All the ancient people, whether it's the Mayans, say to me, people say, well, why did they bother with all the astronomy when they were ripping hearts out? Well, because they knew what was going on in the heavens. And if you watch Ancient Aliens, which is not a sponsor of this show, I should probably contact them. They were taught, along with the Egyptians and the Irish and the Chinese and the peoples in this country who were the Native Americans, the Pacific, all the different continents have pyramids, have pyramid structures, and they all have ways of looking up at the sky, the night sky. And the Chinese have records of UFOs going back 1,000 years. So this is not a new phenomenon. But the phenomena that's happening now on the 26th, which is just a couple of days away, is Gemini Sun, Sagittarius Moon. Now, if you don't understand astrology, it's not hooey, it's not junk. It is about the roadmap of life on the planet. It's like a menu. You know, if you go to a Chinese restaurant, you can order from column A, column B, column C, and every single day has its own energy. Every single astrological phase has its own energy. It's not to freeze you in position. It's to help you understand how, if you have that sign, that sun sign, or if you're rising, which is your ascendant, if you have your chart, it's the 9 o'clock position, which we'll cover in a minute. Those people with energy in their charts of what is happening are more affected. And the area that that sun sign covers is more affected. Now, it just doesn't hit on that day. It starts like maybe a week ahead of time and a week afterwards, because everything that exists in physical form exists in what? If we were in my classes right now, the answers would be coming saying in mental form, in thought form. So what happened a day or two ago? Belarus basically, and really, not only kidnapped, but hijacked a plane to get off 2 dissidents that they didn't like. They hijacked. I hope NATO gets involved today. I haven't watched the news, I didn't have time, and takes action against Belarus. I'm sorry, you just can't send up fighter jets and force a civilian airline out of the sky. That is completely unacceptable. And if this president gets away with it, not the president of Belarus, not the United States, if the president of Belarus gets away with this, everybody will be hijacking planes out of the sky. That's got to be serious. It's got to be drastic action. End of story. And they have to get the people back. That deals with communication. Gemini rules communication. And there are 12 signs, so that means there are 6 pairs. For instance, the next sign will be Cancer, and its pairing is Capricorn. Next sign after that is Leo, its pairing is Aquarius. Next sign is Virgo, its pairing is Pisces. Next one is Libra, its pairing is Aries. Next sign is Scorpio, its pairing is Taurus. And what you'll discover is they generally have completely opposite difficulties. Some of the same assets, but difficult obstacles that the aspect of its opposition can help you with. The only happy pairing in the zodiac is Gemini and Sagittarius. But it's extraordinarily profound when they happen together. Because Sagittarius takes the communication skills from Gemini. And it's like the symbolism they use with the archer, with the arrow, shooting it up into the air. Not trying to kill something, but shooting up into the air. If you ever see it horizontal, that's completely wrong. The artist has no concept. It's shooting up into the air so that the whole planet gets the information. So they take the information from Gemini and they spread it throughout the world so that everyone is aware. Even if they don't understand astrology, you feel something happening. We just saw a plane hijacked out of the sky by a tiny little Russian-run country. Russia knew what they were going to do. They're just sitting back and laughing. So therefore, we must take drastic, serious action so no country ever tries this again. Saying, oh, we heard there was a heart attack. Oh, we heard there was a medical problem. We're just trying to help you. No, you had 50 passengers. You're only getting back 40. This cannot happen. Not in a free world. And we, as the United States, are being tested to see the strength and what lengths we will go to correct this nightmare. And every other country on the planet is shaking except China and Russia, because they gave the okay. Everybody is quivering at what's going to happen to them. If I were in the airline regulatory business, I would say no plane flies to that country, no plane flies anywhere across the country, no plane flies anywhere near that country, no trains go to that country. Make it a nightmare for people to cross by automobile into that country. Cut them off. And I would use military action unless we get everybody back safely. I mean, everybody, including the journalist they didn't like, because he was pointing out crooks and problems with the government. What kind of nonsense is this? What kind of insanity is this? Now you're saying, okay, fine, how does that affect me? Because communication can be messed up. If you're having a very important conversation with someone, make sure that you know what you're going to say, how you are going to say it. If you just blurt something out and the person is not a real direct communicator like I am, for instance, and especially if they're not ready to hear it, you have to figure out a way to give them the information in a way that they can receive it. Because what good is information that somebody doesn't want to hear, that just the information bounces off and flies back or flies all around the place and they don't get the message. So when you're communicating, even to your pussycat, your puppy dog, your bunny rabbit, whatever you have to think clearly first, because animals think in thought. UFOs, and I saw an interesting movie the other night. What was the name of the darn thing? Arrival. Okay. Jeremy Renner, Amy Adams. We'll get back to that. I want to write that down because I do not want to forget that. Because it had already started and my cable cut off the first several letters. So it looked like rival or whatever I thought it was. Anyway, if you're communicating, make sure the person is able to receive it, unless it's an emergency, like the house is on fire. Figure out the type of communicator they are. You're going to say, well, I'm not a psychic. Linda, how am I going to know? I'm not a therapist. How have they received information from you before? Do you always have to couch it in a lot of emotion? I love you. I care about you, which you should be mentioning anyway, but depending upon how insecure the individual is. Or if they're not an auditory person, they could be a visual person, which I don't know if we've ever discussed, but we can discuss it if we have time today. Remind me of that, Miss Producer. You can be more than one type. You can be auditory, which is you're a hearing person. They're the kind of people who can be doing something as you're trying to talk to them, but they're hearing you. If they saw you, they would be distracted. So remember how you've been able to communicate successfully before. And give them a reason to be receiving this information. It could be that they're just fine during this eclipse, but the people around them, say the broadcasting industry, any kind of broadcasting, any kind of speeching, any kind of lecturing, any kind of talking, any kind of therapy work, any teaching, school teachers, be extraordinarily clear about what you want to say and say it using the vocabulary that the person can understand. If they're not as educated in English or French or Spanish or whatever, make sure that you use the proper words so that they understand what you're saying, or you're talking into a closet. And make sure that they understand so that they can convey it to somebody else, or that they understand what's going on with and going wrong with the sound. If they're doing audio work, say they work in a recording studio, what is their joy in life and what is their way of earning a living? They may think everything's wrong. It's got to go back to the manufacturer. We've got a problem. It's not necessarily the machine's fault, because it's not just people who are affected. It is anything that deals with communication. We can have problems with our satellites. We could have problems with airlines. The only plane I ever missed in my life left early. There was too much traffic. I had taken a cab and I got to the airport in time. But the plane left early. How could it leave early? I said to the woman, I have my ticket. She said, well, you weren't here, and so the pilot wanted to get going. I said, the pilot wanted to go. Who's running this airline? The pilot wanted to get going. What do I do with my ticket? She said, I'll put you on the next plane. She said, oh, it's not till tonight. I said, I have to be there by 6 o'clock. This is why I'm flying out at 12. So she put me on another airline, bless her heart, because I continued to fly Delta because of that. I didn't like the other airline, but that's another story. But that can happen. The only time, and I was there like 45 minutes early. How does a plane leave? By the time I got finished checking in and blah, 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 it was a half an hour early. How does a plane leave a half an hour early? So it could be equipment, it could be traveling, it could be airlines, it could be anything that deals with the movement of ideas, the movement of communication, the movement of thought processes. So, especially if you're a communicator, if you're a teacher, if you're a psychic, if you're a metaphysical teacher, if you're a psychiatrist, if you're a therapist of any kind. My cousin is a communications therapist. She's a social worker, and she does counseling. So it's going to be more difficult for her as well, even though she's not a Gemini. Everybody is going to have difficulty. So be a little more patient. Now, that's the first one on the 26th. Gemini Sun, Sagittarius Moon. So that's the communication skills flowing from Gemini to Sagittarius, and Gemini spreading them throughout the galaxy with the spiritual arrow. On the 10th of June, it's double Gemini. It's Gemini Sun and Gemini Moon. I expect very important things to happen starting last week, actually starting like a week and a half ago. What is this, Thursday? 2 weeks ago, right on through the month of June, even though that overlaps with Cancer. I expect lots of important things to be going on. Things that no country has ever hijacked a plane out of the sky. I still can't get over it. I still can't believe it. I still can't believe the thin skin and the terror of that little demagogue running Belarus, that he has to kill off, that he has the nerve to hijack a plane. So expect further complications. And if things are not taken care of properly with communication, with satellites, with airplanes, with radios, with TVs, with your computers, if things are not handled properly, if you don't handle your communication properly, if somebody is talking to you, if you don't understand what they're saying, say, hold on, I don't understand you, but just start again. Say it maybe a little differently. I'm confused. And don't be nasty. Don't be grouchy. Don't be grumpy. Just be pleasant and sweet and kind. If that doesn't get taken care of, because communication is vital to the existence of humans on this planet. And by the way, I think the planet would be much better without humans, but that's just my opinion. We're the only species that intentionally destroys it. Think about that. So if these communication skills are not sharpened, if you haven't learned to communicate effectively, if you haven't learned to listen effectively, then things are going to be worse from now on. And from now on, I mean till the earth has a shift. Now, that is a broad statement. And many astrologers would say, no, Linda, it's just a cycle. No, certain eclipses are more powerful and important. When you're dealing with communication, that's how we deal with each other. On other planets, it's thought process, which I'll talk about that movie in a minute. Do we have a caller on the line? Mm-hmm. Okay. Was that a yes or no?
That's a no.
Okay. Was somebody calling in with something else? If you have a personal question, you got to ask a metaphysical question as well first. Certain eclipses are more powerful. This is extraordinarily powerful and more important about survival. Now, Pisces and Virgo deal with emotions just like Cancer and Capricorn. Emotions are important, but they're part of communication. So if you don't get this communication right, if you're someone that goes, yeah, right, okay, got it, and you don't have it, don't waste everybody's time. Don't waste your own time in your own life. Life is, on this planet, very short. When you're young, you're thinking, oh, Linda, you're crazy. Life is very long. It's forever. My God, I'm only 19. I can't wait till I'm 25. Why? What do you think is going to happen at 25? Do now what you'd like to happen at 25. Be prepared. Communication is vital to life. We are being tested. The whole planet's being tested with this hijacking. It's crucial that it's handled properly. So therefore, understand if you have Gemini or Sagittarius or both in your chart somewhere. And if you've never had your chart done, and these are also not a sponsor, these people, 1-800-MAPPING. And you have to know your time, not just approximately, but the exact time and location of your birth. If you don't, forget it. But you can buy an ephemeris, which mine is buried somewhere. I organized everything. And until I finish organizing, no, it's not here. Okay, that was a quick thought. An ephemeris, you can get the U.S. Naval ephemeris, or you can get the Neil Mickelson ephemeris in any bookstore. And what it does is give you day by day, month by month, year by year, 100 years of where the planets are. And I think you go back to 1850, I'm not certain. But other countries have kept better records than the United States. So you may have better luck if you're in another country. And it'll tell you day by day, small print, use your reader glasses if you need them, or a magnifying glass, and take a piece of paper and find your birthday and just read above where it says, highlight your day and read about where all the planets are. And if you don't know what the symbols are, you can look, I guess you can find them on Google. Find everything else on Google, I guess you can find there. And if you've been watching the show long enough, or if you have an astrological calendar, I get mine from Llewellyn. We need two next time. I'm talking to my executive producer. You will find out what each of the signs represents. And you will know what's in your chart. So if you see an eclipse, and if you get like the Llewellyn calendar, it tells you what the astrological meanings are. It's like the ephemeris, but it's day by day and it's easy to read and keep track of. But you will know whether or not you're more affected by the eclipses than other people. But if you have people in your life who have those placements in their chart, you can look up anybody's birthday. And you won't know the rising unless you know the time. And that has to be charted by a professional. I don't do charts anymore. I did them very detailed, and people just did not want to pay for the 6 and 7 hours it would take me to do the chart. And the way I used to do the charts is I had an explanations across the page, as well as your chart, and I highlighted with color where your sun sign was and what it meant down in the bottom, where your Venus was, what it meant down in the bottom. So I also told you how many earth signs, air, fire, and water signs you had, so you would know whether you're more emotional, whether you're more volatile, whether you're more mental, whether you're more earthbound, so to speak. And so it's very helpful for everyone to have. It's not meant to say, don't get out of bed today, call in sick. That's silly. If it says be careful of travel, it means be careful and don't be talking on your phone. I don't care if you have a phone that where you don't have to touch it. It's like on your dashboard or something, because people have a tendency to look where the sound is coming from. You could just take a second before somebody pulls out in front of you. It's astonishing how fast cars move. And so therefore, your eyes need to be on the road and you need to be extraordinarily careful, or leave a little. If you feel like I can leave now and you don't normally leave till 8 o'clock, say, I could leave now, it might be 7:30. You could be avoiding an accident that's going to happen around 8 o'clock. So, and if you're in the accident, it's not, oh, that crazy Linda told me to leave early. You don't have to leave early. You could leave a few minutes later. If you're in an accident, it is karmic. Karma is the law of cause and effect. In your Bible, it says you reap what you sow. So these eclipses, because of the state of the world, and in any case, if everything was running smoothly, if this was like the Shambhala, which China has been looking for years, and it's why they took over Tibet, It's in the astral world. It's not in the physical world. It's what is meant in the Bible, where as in heaven, so as will be earth. I'm misquoting that, I think, but in other words, heaven and earth, things should be run here the way they are in the heavens. And so I don't know how to make it more clear to you. The communication, proper, effective communication, tailored to the person who's receiving it. Now, the very best teachers I had in the schools I went to were teachers who would be scanning the room. I particularly remember Mrs. Arnett, who I'd still be in high school today, were it not for how she taught me math, because I get math psychically. And unfortunately, schools don't appreciate that because they want to see how you proved it out. I couldn't prove it out. Yes, I have a genius IQ, and they put me in the way advanced classes, but the teacher would be writing whatever the thing is on the board, the question on the board. You know how they do the math stuff like Einstein. Well, I'd already have the answer in my head, and I'd raise my hand, and the teacher would say, I haven't finished writing. I said, yes, but it's going to be blah, blah, blah. That's a look. And he was really good looking. And so he'd stare at me like I was a tree. And so therefore, they thought it was inconsistent for me to stay in the gifted math class. They just didn't have a sense of humor. They just didn't appreciate my natural abilities. Well, so be it. But he never looked at the class unless he looked dead straight beyond the students to the back. The best teachers, like the math teacher who got me out of high school and the math teacher who got me out of business school, looked at the students. When I teach a class, I look at the students. One of my favorite classes will always be the astrology, numerology, tarot class from hell. The first one, we did it three times. But the first time, this is the look I got from most of the people. I swear to the heavens, a little drool coming out of some of them. They just thought I was crazy. But everything relates to everything. Astrology relates to numerology, which relates to the tarot, because the tarot is the story of the soul's journey. So therefore, and how you can get through life and what level you're on. The Oriental people, including the Hawaiians, say the lower self, which is the physical self, the middle self, which is the emotional and mental self, and the higher self, which is the spiritual part that's still connected to the heavens. Others say body, mind, and spirit. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's the same thing. It's the journey of the soul and which level you are on. Are you strictly on the lower self, where you've chosen not to make spiritual advancement, or you've chosen not to deal with emotions? Maybe you're a mathematician, and those things would get in your way. Or you just refused. Say, I don't care, it doesn't matter to me. You'll be back again to deal with it. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Are you in the middle self, where you're dealing with intellect and emotions? Or on the spiritual level, where you realize the limitations of this planet do not apply to your soul? Ask your cat or dog. Ask your horse. Ask any living creature, a higher level. Reptiles are not a higher level. They don't communicate the same way that we do. And it's not like Harry Potter, where he's talking to the snake in Harry Potter 1. I love Harry Potter, and the whole crowd. Anyway, there is no snake language. Just think. And most of them will pick it up. I had 2 frogs in my pond last year. I have an angel with her little hands cupped like that. And one frog first and then the second frog, and they were sitting in the hands. People came over, they took pictures. It was absolutely sweet and precious. And then I didn't see them. I thought, oh, they hopped out and went on their way. As I was cleaning the pond out at the end of the summer, because it's a freestanding, large 36-inch round pond, boom, one flew out in my face. A giant frog. Boom, another one flew out in front of my face. They had grown. I didn't think about them growing. They were hiding under the leaves. I don't think, and what I was saying was, before I started cleaning out the pond, I said to the frogs, I'm going to clean out the pond. If you're hiding anywhere, I don't know why, but I'm going to clean it out. So you're going to have to figure out where you're going to go next. I don't know, maybe a half an hour before. They obviously didn't leave. They obviously didn't get it. Okay. There's no frog language except thought. So they either A, were asleep, B, didn't want to get it because they couldn't figure out where to go. And then I discovered they bury themselves. Whatever the problem was, they didn't get it. And I've told you that before I trim the bushes, I let them know usually a day ahead of time. The same thing with tree branches. I just let them know a day ahead of time. If I'm going to rearrange the orchids, let them know at least several hours before, because they're more tuned in and the trees are more tuned in. Yeah, they're living. They have a soul. And they know the trees talk to each other, by the way. If you read National Geographic, or if you read National Wildlife or Smithsonian, trees have a language of their own. And some are more harmonious with each other than others. And if there's a rogue tree that gets planted by a squirrel or something, they will try to send out a chemical that has been detected that is to make sure that tree doesn't grow. If they're harmonious, you're going to have to do your own weeding. But if they're not harmonious, the trees surrounding them don't want it there. They send out a detectable chemical. And not only that, their roots in certain trees are compatible and they grow together. And the microbiome that they find on these roots are compatible with a maple tree and an oak tree. Really? You think trees are stupid pieces of wood? They're alive. They're alive. So this is an important, on the 26th and the 10th, bang is when it hits. Bang, it leaves, but it doesn't race across the sky. It slowly departs. Slowly the energy diminishes. But in this case, because of the planet's circumstances, it is going to last for a very long time. Any questions about that? And do you think this is your original planet? Do you think this is the planet that you first took physical form in? And if you're one of these Christians or a Catholic who thinks there's only one lifetime, by the way, the Catholic Church, as it became, for 300 years, reincarnation was absolutely, positively discussed and taught. But how do you control the people? You keep them from being educated. You keep them from reading. You don't want them to know anything. So it was decided, I think it was the first council of Nicaea, that if people understood that they're coming back in another lifetime, they're not going to donate the money they want them to donate. They're not going to tithe. They're not going to do what we say. And if they don't do what we say, we don't have a religion. So they decided that it was a heresy. But if you look carefully in the Bible where Jesus is talking about Elijah, you're going to get a surprise. That's the New Testament. You're going to get a surprise. Because he's talking about reincarnation. That the writers of this Bible couldn't bear to write the word reincarnation. But he says, before now, I was so-and-so. And before you were so-and-so. So I find that fascinating. By the way, how much do you know about the book of Enoch? The Ethiopian Bible is much longer, has many more gospels that the Western influence, the Roman Catholics, didn't want included. It talks about the Gospel of Mary, who was Jesus's wife, Gospel of Thomas. I think it's Philip. I already have it. I have one of the books about it. It's called the Pistis Sophia, Pistis, Sophia. Sophia was the female name for God in Eastern European area, northern France, Germany, Austria, which is now Germany and Austria, Russia, Poland, that whole area, that part of the world, and parts of the Mediterranean. My paternal grandmother was Sophia. And I didn't see her much. I saw her only for like a couple of weeks in my life, in summers, and maybe 4 or 5 times as a drive out there to see them at the farm. But I always felt it was a special name. And when I was studying Catholicism with a former Catholic monk, and studying Judaism at the same time, I discovered that she was one of the most revered forms of the female aspect of God. Remember what I say? One God, female, male, one God. I'll do that again the other way. One God, male, female, one God. Can you tell me why I use these shapes of my hand to indicate male and female? I'd be interested in seeing how much you're paying attention. So some of us, and I've always felt this way, that this was not where I belonged. And obviously I was here for certain reasons. Teaching is one of them. This is where I felt I needed to be for a reason, but I didn't know how long. And I'm talking about when I'm laying in the crib as a little baby. I didn't feel, well, I should be here then. On my 3rd drowning, I didn't feel that as well. I'm not from here. That's when I had a very an important near-death experience that I remember. When I died from the measles, same situation. They came back. I was so upset. They made me come back to Earth. I had another near-death experience that I remember when I was operated on when I was around 14 or 15. They gave me anesthesia by mouth, which I cannot have. And interestingly, I was born redhead, strawberry blonde. And I just talked to somebody yesterday, a wonderful counselor who is also born a redhead, also has the same problems. There's a wonderful book. I don't have it up here. I have it in my library downstairs, called Red. And the picture of the woman who wrote it is on the front, and she's also red hair. And they have discovered scientifically that we have different mutations on some of our DNA. And we're more sensitive to light. We're more sensitive to the sight, sound, taste, vibrations. We have more sensitivities. More of us are psychic, slightly more than the general populace. We don't respond the same to medication. And it's not only because they use male prisoners and male college students instead of females, because they decided that women years ago were too irregular with our periods and our hormones changed too much to give a proper reading. Well, guess what? The prescriptions you see and the doses you see on your bottle are for the average 23-year-old male. And we, those of us who are redheads, are more sensitive to that. We are more sensitive to all medications. We're more sensitive to all smells. We're more sensitive to sound. We hear things more frequently and more deeply than others. And the medication thing is a problem. And if you find that you've ever had difficulty, you've ever had inhaled medication and they had to revive you, or you felt sick and deathly ill afterwards, you've got to tell your doctor. And you can never have inhaled medication again, nor should you ever use any kind of nebulizer. Now, if you have COPD or something else, that's a problem. If you have asthma, try to use it not conveniently throughout the day, but only when you really need it. And you may have a bad reaction. You have to tell your doctor immediately.
Did you want to talk about the movie?
Pardon me?
Did you want to talk about the movie?
Yes. The name of the stupid thing again? Arrival. Okay. I saw that the other. I was zipping through the menu on your TV, and I saw Rival. I said, "What the heck is that? Oh, I don't need it." And I heard "Turn Back." And I went back and said, "Okay." So I turned it on, and it's based on a book, which is erroneous. It makes an interesting movie and an interesting story, but we do not need verbal communication. And the theme of the story was that these scientists, that Earth had land on it, or just above it, this shape, UFOs.
3 minutes.
And all the, and China, Russia, Europe, United States, Australia, different places in the United States. And long story short, they didn't know how to communicate with them, but Amy Adams' character and Jeremy Renner's character, both, she was a worldwide well-known linguist, and he also dealt with language and also the scientific side of it. And they went aboard with all the gear, and which I'm saying to myself, they're not inviting you aboard so that you smother and die. You don't need that gear, but nobody listens to me, and that's how the book was written. Long story short, because it would take so long to describe the whole story, but the visitors were gigantic octopus. Now, we already know scientifically that octopus have no relationship to anything on planet Earth. The scientists are saying they are alien. And they are. Not a single thing. Bacteria and humans have an 85% compatibility. Bacteria, but not octopus. And if you have not seen The Octopus Teacher, you must see My Octopus Teacher.
2 minutes.
On your cable. And also Smithsonian had, and I think still has, the story of Cher helping rescue an elephant from Cambodia. Bring tissues on both of them. They communicate with us. We communicate with them. So they speak in circles, was the concept. And Amy had to try to figure out how to determine what the circles were. And they had little squigglies and little designs. Beautiful. It was beautiful language. And the problem is, when I have been aboard voluntarily, there was no language. Everything was thought, regardless of what planet they were from. Everything was thought. Everybody understood everybody else. I said, if only it could be like this on the planet, on Earth. But the author of the book didn't know that. And this made an interesting story. It's an interesting, worthwhile movie. But we don't need verbal communication.
1 minute.
We think And so therefore the communique, even though if you haven't formed it properly, that slightly formed idea travels to other people, to trees, to animals, to whatever life form is near you. And the angels and the watchers and your guides, because everyone has angels, know what you're thinking already. We don't have time today, but next time I will explain the misconcept of everything's happening at once, because it's not. I'm sorry we didn't get callers today. I know a lot of people you have just stumbled upon me, and others have given up because we had such irregular hours. But every second Tuesday, every fourth Tuesday at 6 p.m., we're going to be here and be thinking about your metaphysical questions, which are anything about plants, about cats, catfish, trees, planets, galaxies, but we have to discuss the time continuum. That will make a lot of sense to you. And remember the 26th, which is this week, and June 10th, eclipses. Fix your communication skills, communicate what's important. Don't waste time with stupid stuff. This is critically important for you, for your loved ones, and for the earth. And remember, if you just open up your hearts and minds, you will know that God and the angels are always with you. Namaste. Thank you for joining us. I'm Linda Bennett.